Hi everyone, today I will be sharing the first of a series of short stories, and I decided to call the first story The Buñuelo Thief. Okay, this is an adaptation of a famous poem by Valerie Cox. If you haven't read that poem before, you can check it out in the description. I'll be sharing it as well as other materials. Remember that you will find free materials in the description of every one of the videos in the channel. And the characters in this story are a beautiful woman and a wonderful kid. And for the purpose of this story, I'm gonna name them Diane and Mulatin. And this story takes place around a bag of buñuelos. Guys, for this story, I want you to pay close attention to the details and try to imagine everything I'm going to narrate right now. So once upon a time, at this place, if you are from Valle del Cauca or if you are from Cali, you will feel familiar with this place, which is the bus terminal of Santiago de Cali. And as I mentioned before, it all happens around a bag of buñuelos in a trip from Cali to Buenaventura. If you are not from Colombia, Buenaventura is located in the Pacific coast, a couple of hours away from Cali, which is the capital of Valle del Cauca. So Diane wanted to travel to Buenaventura to spend a couple of weeks at a relative's place. Before the trip, Diane wanted to get something to eat on the way, but she was reading a book she had recently bought. Diane's package consisted of a backpack and a rolling suitcase, and she didn't really want to walk around too much carrying her luggage. Walking around the place, she found a great offer in a bakery. A whole bag with 30 buñuelos cost just 4,000 pesos, which at current conversion is less than $1. Shocked by this offer, she bought a bag of buñuelos and headed to her bus. She boarded one of those Duplo S26 buses that have 2 floors and paid for a spot on the first floor because it's more comfortable. When she got to her spot, she saw a boy sitting right next to her place with whom she was going to share the whole trip. She put her rolling suitcase on top and sat beside the boy. Then she opened her backpack and took out a book. After a while, she saw how the boy grabbed a buñuelo from the bag she bought at the terminal. Surprised by the kid's behavior, she grabbed the buñuelo and bit it while holding her stare at the kid. She thought the kid had learned the lesson and went back to reading her book. A few minutes later, she noticed the kid taking 2 more buñuelos from the bag. Diane was livid. She rushed to snatch a couple of buñuelos for herself to show that kid who was the boss. Before resuming reading the book, she tried to imagine that the boy's behavior was a result from a life in need. Maybe he belonged to a family with limited conditions. Along the trip, Diane couldn't help but notice how every time she took a buñuelo, the boy took one too. And when there was just one left, she wondered what he would do. To her surprise, with a smile in his face, he took the last buñuelo and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought to herself, how disrespectful this boy is. I kindly shared my buñuelos without questioning the reasons for such disgraceful behavior, and this is how he responds? The bus arrived a few minutes later and Diane felt relief. As she got off the bus, she hoped she never had to see that boy again. She refused to look back at the little ingrate thief. But it was until she was heading to her relatives that she discovered with surprise that her bag of buñuelos was inside her backpack, nice and complete. If mine are here, she whispered in shame, the others were his, and he only tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the buñuelo thief. Alright guys, so that was the story of today, and this woman here is a Colombian important and famous woman. If you happen to know her name, please leave it in the comments along with an explanation of who she is, alright? I'm pretty sure a lot of people know who she is, so share that with us in the comments. What's the moral of this story? If you paid close attention, you will know that it was a misunderstanding. So what is the moral? Have you ever felt something similar? Have you ever lived something similar? And here we have some reflection questions that I'm pretty sure will help us also understand what is the moral of this story. I'm pretty sure these questions will help us also reflect upon how can we improve as human beings. So the first reflection question is, do you ever look at all angles in every situation? Second question is, do you ever question your own assumptions regarding life, other people's opinions, or about any specific topic? Third question is, do you react without reflecting and trying to understand the other? And the other here, in quotation marks, refers to the other person, the other person's culture, to the other person's beliefs, to the other person's reasons or arguments, the other's points of view. The other is like a group of things that belong to other people. Okay, so do you ever consider to challenge your own bias? And when I say bias here, I mean the preconceptions that we all have, preconceptions about things. So do you ever consider to challenge your own bias, your own conceptions, your own beliefs? Sometimes we may think that we are experts in something, only to realize later on that we were wrong. The problem is that if we are so stubborn not to challenge our own bias, we can end up making a huge mistake, as our character in the story, Diane, who ended up being the buñuelo thief. So if you're a teacher, I hope this material helps you also generate some discussion in your classes around these cultural misunderstandings that sometimes take place. Not only cultural misunderstandings, sometimes it's a matter of beliefs, differences. Sometimes it's just that we are lacking some information to come up with a fair judgment or a fair argument with regard to something. Have you ever lived a similar situation? And to all the teachers on the other side of this screen, you will find 7 reflection questions in the description of this video. Feel free to print it out or share it with your students and generate some really meaningful discussion around this intercultural topic. So, for those of you who were wondering who the woman in the picture was, she is Diana Trujillo. She is Colombian. She's, as a matter of fact, from Cali, and she works at NASA. So as I said at the beginning, The Buñuelo Thief is an adaptation of The Cookie Thief, which is a poem by Valerie Cox. You will find that poem in the description of this video, or you can also find it on the web. And as a bonus, in the next slide you will find the answers to the exercise in the previous episode. If you haven't solved that exercise, my recommendation is to stop this video, go there, check it out, solve the exercise yourself, and then come back here and compare. So here it goes. So here I wrote the 2 possibilities in every one of them, because there are 2 possibilities. The idea was to turn these affirmative sentences into negatives or into questions. Here I give you the 2 options. Remember, you could create yes/no questions or information questions. That was all about that exercise. And here are the answers to the second part of that exercise from the previous episode. I'll leave the link to that episode in the description, or I will also leave it up there on the upper right corner of this episode, alright? So we reached the end of another episode, and I wanna thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for watching until the end. Feel free to share it, comment, or like or subscribe if you want to, and I see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.